Hello everybody, welcome to Stay Home, Stay Creative. I'm Maggie DeYoung and I'm a teaching artist with Artists Creating Together. Today we're going to be making homemade paper. It's also called recycled paper, which is great. I love recycling. So here's some samples of it. This is our first one. It's kind of got a yellow tint to it, kind of a bluish, and then we also have a little bit of green here. There we go. These are great for writing messages to people if you want to send something in the mail, a little message on here. I also use them for my to-do list. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with this paper. So I'm going to show you what we need before we start. I have a little sifting tool here with a screen type of material. This is great. Also, you can do this with a regular screen if you can find one at a garage sale. They're also at Goodwill. You can find just a screen, or even at your house. If you have an old screen you're not using, turn it into a little sifter for the paper making. And I also have this bowl that's going to be underneath it because it gets a little messy. All right, and then for the materials we're going to use, just find any kind of paper. This is great because it's anything you can find at your house. So I found some old construction paper, little bits and pieces that were not going to be used. So it's great to just reuse them like this. Even tissue paper for wrapping. I know I save a lot of the tissue paper, which is helpful right now because I'm just using it for this, and it made this, it's a pretty blue color, which will be fun. Also some white tissue paper. You can even use printer paper, especially if you have something that has a typo in it. You can reuse it. It's still good. Just turn it into recycled paper. Yeah, so other kinds of paper, you can use magazines, you can use newspaper, old cards that you wrote. Yeah, any type of paper, which is great. And now what you're going to do is put it in a pan. And I have this large pan here, and I put it in with warm water. It doesn't need to be too hot, just nice and warm. And I ripped up all the paper and just, let's see, yeah. I tore a good amount of the paper. It doesn't have to be torn too much, but just enough where it's easy to all fit together. And I'm just going to let it sit, and I let this sit right here for 30 minutes. And so you can know it's kind of done or approximately done when you start to play with the paper. If it feels like it's very soft, if it feels almost very fragile, easily torn apart, that is perfect condition to put this in the blender. So I'm going to take you over here. This is the other part that we need when we're making paper is a blender. I have my bullet here. So I'm just going to show you this. When you're doing this, you do want a good amount of water because it can get very just lumpy. If you try to spread it across the screen, you want a good amount of water just to make that spreading more evened out. So what I'm going to do is take my pieces of paper right here, and I'm just going to smush them in here. Whatever colors you need. I'm going to put a little bit of white here, some of this teal and some blue. A little bit more white. I do like this teal though, so I'm definitely partial to putting this in there. Okay, here we go. It's a good amount right there. And it's always fun trying to guess what kind of color will come out of it. Or what colors it will pick up the most. All right, so I'm going to take this, and you're going to take the water that was in the pan right here and use it for this. And like I said earlier, you do want a good amount of water. So I already took the water out of the bowl. I'm just going to pour it in here. And I would say you want a little bit more water than the paper to make it easier to smooth out. I'm going to take my lid, put it on here. Make sure it's very secure. If it's not, it would be an unfortunate situation with everything going everywhere. So it's nice and secure. I'm just going to put it on here and pulsate it. It has a nice good amount of water in there. I think if you shake it and you realize that it's very stiff, you might need to add a little bit more water. So I'm going to move this back over here. And take you guys over here with me again. All right. Now we're on to the fun part. Actually, I feel like the blending is fun too. So I'm going to grab my little bowl and I'm going to grab my little screen here. And you can do this with your hand. I also grabbed a spatula, whichever one you feel like is more comfortable or easier to use. Sometimes it's a little bit messy with just using your hands. So I'm going to tilt you down. You can see the screen here. All right. And what I'm going to do, you know what? I'm also going to grab a towel because this can get a little bit messy. Here we go. All right. I'm going to take this, fit it up. Go. It's a nice blue color, which is going to be very fun when it dries. Okay, I'm going to pour this on here. Perfect. And this is where you're going to start figuring out just kind of what your preferred style paper is. Some people like it a little thicker. I like mine kind of thin. Depends on what you're using it for. But now what I'm going to do, and if you can see right here, the water is starting to sift through. You're just going to, with a spatula or with your hands, sometimes it's kind of fun with the hands, you're just going to smooth this out on here. All the way to the edges. Go. And you're going to figure out what kind of thickness you want, and this really is your own experimentation. So when I first started doing this, I made them extra thick, but as I started making more paper, I was like, okay, I like it a little bit thinner, so I used a little bit less. If you can see, it's just very thin on this screen here. I'm just going to push it down just like that. All right, and then a fun thing to do with this, you can do all different things with this paper. You can write messages on them, but also another idea is I have seed packets here. I have some oregano, some 4 o'clocks. It's really fun to even blend these up, but I would say blend up the paper and then even put this in the blender afterward, just stir it in so you don't ruin the seeds. But what you can do is just mix it in with the mix here and then let it dry in there, and then when it's completely dried, you can cut it in small paper strips like this, and so you can have little seeds embedded in here, and you can plant this in the garden. It's fun to give them as little gifts. So there's a lot of things you can do with this paper. But now that it's kind of at this point right here, most of the water sifted through, it's great to just let it sit outside. I know this week is going to be a very warm week, so it'll be great to just let this sit out in the sun. You can let it completely dry on this, or if you want, you can wait for it to be, at least able to lift up. So either way, it comes off the screen pretty well, but once it's dry or close to dry is when you can take it off, and then you can cut it. Because mine's a circle, I just took off the edges and I cut them in squares and rectangles, but whatever you want with this, whatever shapes you want, just have fun. This is a really fun project to experiment with, make mistakes, try over again, and figure out what kind of style you like. All right, it was great creating with you guys.